Welcome back after the break. We will now hear Thomas on an update on the Debian web pages, and the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. I would like to talk about some changes that I did to the web pages. It may be almost about removing things. So there was a talk at DebConf Cambridge years ago where someone said, oh, look at your web page. This was the old design. You will get, I think it was like £500 if you manage to improve it in 1 year. And I directly told the guy, oh, you can take your money, but Debian will fail to do it in 1 year. But that was the time when I started becoming active in the web team. We had this new design in 2019. Before we had like 130 links on the start page. So on the very first Debian web page, if someone said, oh, I would like to have a link on the start page, please add it, then the web team just added it, and so it gets crowded and crowded. What I did, I read the text or the content of the web page. And my impression is still that for some pages, I'm the only one that really reads the text. So until last year, I added only a few files, but deleted a lot. And that's what I want to talk about. So my first commit was, I looked at the at the www.debian.org/events page, and I didn't find any mention of the DebConf, our yearly most important Debian conference. It was not listed there.
Why would it?
So then that's what I did in the very beginning. So simple things like this. Then I found something. So we have a lot of unused files. There was a hint how to do translations for the Debian installer. And Git is very nice. You can look what was the last edit. And the link to the English version was removed. So there was no link to this web page anymore. But what happened afterwards? The translator got involved. And after the link to this page was removed, they started translating this page. And at that time, I also looked at for a single web page, I looked at the web Apache log. Does anyone access this page? Because it is still linked from somewhere else. But I couldn't find any access. We have the log files for 2 weeks, so there was no access at all to this file, so I could remove it. If I would do this for every page, it would take like hundreds of years to clean up everything. There was another page that was not referenced. There was a very funny page where we talked, and I think it was like more than 20 years ago, that people wrote a web page, why can't we package hotjava, Courtney, or HDate? It was mostly about because the license is not free. But we had this web page saying we cannot package it, and we still had some translation. So the content gets outdated after some time because no one wants to use hotjava or something else nowadays. The Debian Met project had some news, for example. They did this like 9 to 10 years, but then no more news were created by this team. And I thought, okay, news that are older than 10 years, maybe not up to date or important or interesting at all to this. So after asking Andreas, I removed them. We have a lot of statistics. So besides that, we have static HTML. We're generating a lot of statistics. And then there was a column in this statistic, and it was broken since a long time, and no one recognizes it. No one even complained about if I click in this table on this link, I don't get any information. So the question is really someone using this web page? Does anyone know that we had audit projects in the past? Security audits. One. So here's one that knows that we had this. It was Steve Camp that did some security audits, and he also created some web pages where he said, I found those bugs or some CVEs. But this project was stopped a long time ago, and that's also something when I nowadays find this, I just remove it. Intro organization, a very nice page where we list our organizational structure. Who is the DPL, who is the web team, who is responsible for documentation, translations. But also it listed, I think, every brand, a lot of just mailing lists that we have, like Debian Woman. We said we have a Debian Woman project. In the end, it was just a link to a mailing list. And I contacted some people. I think I contacted Martin because he was on something like press or documentation. And I said, oh, you are listed on the Debian documentation project team. And he said, what? I don't know about this. So we listed very many teams. And in Debian, there are some official teams like FTP Master and debconf delegates, but there are also a lot of teams. For example, also the web team is not a delegated team, but just the people who said, I want to work on it and not. And so there were a lot of teams listed which are not really active anymore, almost members. So on this page, we also list the members of the pages. And I think it's not that important to have every small group of people that are working on a certain topic listed on the organizational structure of the project. So there I did a lot of cleanup. In the past, maybe you know, there were the Linux Congress, Linux Tag, a lot of, not conferences, but fairs where we showed up with the Debian booth. And so we had, for every event in every country, we created a page. We said who's responsible for running the booth. Sometimes we had some reports. How did this event went? And we also created ICS files until 2013. And if we change something in the web design, for example, in the footer of our web pages, these ICS files, it were now not only the ICS files, but also the pages of the events were recreated because of the new design. And I don't know why we still kept the ICS files after the event was closed. So that were, for example, like 2,800 WML files. This is one of my favorite. We have a web page, historical.packages.debian.org. The web page, and I checked it a few minutes ago, still says is not yet in service. And guess what? It was never in service. And I connected, I talked to the DSA team. They will shut down the machine because we have a machine for this. Documentation. We collect an overview of which kind of documentation we have. Developer documentation, user documentation. This is mostly that Debian packages will be extracted and then the HTML or PDF will be shown on the web page. And for many, many years, we had a sub-page called obsolete documentation. And we call them problematic manuals. For example, Debian Guide, Debian User Reference Manual. And that's what we said on these web pages about this documentation that it's stalled, almost empty, incomplete, is yet to be written, or someone should update it. So we said this for many years on our webpage. This is old, outdated documentation, but we still wanted to present it. And I think that's wasting of time, because we all know we can do better things that are more important to our users. So I often try to look from the user perspective. So what does the user need? And what does the user think if he goes on the web page and we said, oh, by the way, here's all our obsolete documentation. Yeah, it's stalled, it's outdated, but please. So other things, apt offline. We had some release notes that we built 6 times a day, even if there was no change in it. So this also cost resources. So we put CPU computing resources into building things that never changed, but we still have no better machine for Salsa. So I added a patch, so now we only build them if they're needed. And we kept also the release notes for a lot of releases, but this comes later. Here's it. Nowadays, we only have the release notes, so that the installation menu and the release notes for a lot of releases. And I think I cleaned up everything. Yeah, we have Bullseye, Bookworm, Trixie documentation. These were a lot of files, and they were polluting our search index. Because if you look for something, you get like 900 hits. But in the end, it was maybe only 1 or 2 pages. But this page was available in 19 languages for the installation guide. For each architecture, we had a different version. But if you div the installation guide, or maybe it was a release notes for the architecture, the only difference is the architecture name in the URL. The rest of the manual was the same. That is now fixed for Trixie. Yeah, so a lot of files, a lot of computing power for creating web pages which are very similar, and maybe no one is interested in the release notes for a release that was done 20 years ago. At DebConf Kosovo 2 years ago, I started looking at the security pages. So security pages means for every Debian security announcement or security announcement for the LTS version, we had to manually create a WML file and a .data file. This was mostly done by the security people, sometimes by the translators. And that was the most work that were done in the Git repository of the web pages. So the most edits was creating for these security announcement a new web page. And it was manual work. So at Kosovo, I started doing a new list. So what we had was we listed the last 6 DSA announcements. That was done automatically, but we have to create these web pages. And then I created a list from other sources. We have the security tracker, which has like 2 or 3 files, where the security team puts all the information about CVE numbers, DSA numbers, and which package version fixes those bugs or security announcements. And I've created a script that now generates an overview, a listing from these sources. And my plan then was we should remove all these old security pages. But that was not that easy, because we had some other web pages that needed this WML and .data files. First, we have the RSS feeds for this information that were using this WML data files, the OVAL files that most people do not know. What is it? Why is it there? It's just an XML file with all the information for one special distribution like Buster, Bookworm, all CVE numbers, all DSA numbers, at that time including the short description, and there's security scan software which reads this XML file, and then you can say Debian version X has passed all tests or something like this. We created some Apache redirects and a huge cross-reference list file, and there was a commit. It was like, I think, 8 years ago, which says, oh, this cross-reference file is not needed anymore. We have all the information in the security tracker. Yeah, but we still were building it. And so the goal was get rid of parsing those files. That would also mean that we cannot translate the security announcements anymore. So sure, there were some people complaining we couldn't have the French version of the Firefox DSA announcement, whatever. And there were 2 French guys that did translate every DSA, every. So the last 2 years, only French translation were done. So like, I think Danish did this some years ago, for not maybe half of them, but most languages didn't translate it. So after preparing everything that no service needs this WML and .data file, finally in January, I could do this git rm -rf command, and that removed 45,000 files. 54,000 files from the Git repository. And did anyone said, oh yeah, that was the day when everything was shaking and I remember it because a lot of information was missing? No? Oh. So what we now have, and in this new list that I generate, in the past we only had listed the last 6 announcements linking to the web page. Now we link to the security tracker information where you get the CVEs, package numbers, and so on. But also, and that was not possible before, we link directly to list.debian.org where the official announcement mail of the security announcement is archived. And this link is not a canonical link, so we have to parse the mailing list archive, but now you can just link to security/DSA -number and you will get to the official, to the original email. Which also means if there's a typo in it, we cannot fix it because we will not send a new file, but this does not happen that much. And also the same for the LTS security announcement works. We had this map file on the server, but it was never used by Apache. So sometimes we do things, but they are not used they are not usable for the user. So these OVAL files. Last year at Hamburg, I did a talk about analyzing the Apache web logs, and there I found, we have 5 Apache mirrors logs for 2 weeks, and we have 135 terabytes of traffic, and nearly all are these OVAL XML files, because they were not compressed. So now we compressed them and the traffic goes down. There are still a lot of automatic clients, bots, they try to receive the uncompressed versions. So we see a lot of 403 requests. And we had to rewrite the script that now uses the data not from the local files, but from the security tracker information. And then clean up because some scripts are not used. So I tried to do everything. Bugs. I don't mean bugs Debian.org. I mean only the bugs that were filed for the Debian deb pages. So people say, there's something missing, there's a broken link, I would like to have another link. So the bugs for www.debian.org, I looked at them, and they are also open for years. And often a discussion is started. And in the end, we do not decide which is the right way to handle this bug. I think this is the main problem, not only for the web pages, but for all bugs, or a lot of bugs. Or this is a major problem inside Debian. We do not decide. Everyone knows we really love to discuss, but then someone has to make a decision. So my advice, make a decision. It does not have to be a perfect one, because things change. Maybe it's perfect for today, but in 2 years, another decision would be better. But also from the user's point of view, it's better that if a user reports something, that he gets a reply, even if the reply is, sorry, we do not have time, we will not implement it, because I will show you some bugs where maybe the submitter of the bug gets a reply from the web team after 10 to 20 years. And that's very bad, in my opinion. So there was, in 2006, not 20 years ago, someone said, there are incorrect quotes, so different languages uses different types of quotes. So, and this is not correct, and there's a patch. So there were a discussion how to fix it, and then nothing happened for 3 years. Then there came in 2015 a new patch, but then again nothing happened. So the bug was still open, and I just closed it because, maybe we have not the correct quotes for some languages, but this is a minor problem. Or what do you think about it? Should we fix it? If you like, reopen the bug, apply the patch, or try, maybe, I'm not sure if this patch still applies. And other things. For example, we list some books about Debian. Listing the publication year. I think also it's a good idea to have this. But since no one did this, and this was a very nice, so someone added a patch that we could list the publication year. And in 2013, he got the reply, please send this to another email. And since nothing happened, I think if I were a new user to Debian and I would be brave to submit a bug, and then someone tell me, thanks, please submit this to another email, and then nothing happened at all, I would say, okay, I will never file a bug again to Debian because they don't care about it. So there are some other things you can read. Mostly no one cares about it for years. Or for example, the CD vendor list. We also had like fax numbers in the list of CD vendors or PC vendors. And I didn't check it if the fax number is still valid. I just removed it. Yeah.
It was in Germany then, yes.
Yeah. And this is, I think, the oldest bug I closed more than 25 years ago. We want to search the content of source packages. So you see, someone filed a bug, then like 18 years, no activity on the bug itself. Then some bugs were merged. And then I've added the information, and at that time I also was not that brave saying, hey, we have searched Debian.net and closing it. So even for me, it took me then 3 years to finally close the bug. So I didn't heard anything from the submitter of the bug. So when concerning to bugs, is it an important bug or feature? I really like the idea of automatic closing bugs after some amount of time, even for other packages. I like it, even if you're saying, because then the question is, if one says, I have a bug in this software, and this bug is like 10 years old, it's very time-consuming to reproduce this bug. Maybe it's still there, but then we could also say, if someone says, yeah, it's still in the newest Debian version, yeah, we would care about it. But if there is no action at all on such a bug, I would automatically close it, not as Debian is doing this, Ubuntu is doing this like half a year later, but maybe like 1 or 2 releases later, or 5 years, or whatever. Even 5 years would close a lot of bugs, because we have a lot of old bugs. Yeah, if you like to do this, ping this. I did a lot of things connect. Yeah, if you implement it, do it. I would just close the bug. So, member list. We have a lot of people that had access to the WebWML repo, and so people could just do changes on all web pages. So all web pages under www.debian.org. So I looked at the page, and there were still people listed that are not active anymore. Our Xapian search engine was very bad, because it also put the footer into the index. So if you search like DPL 2024, you will find a lot of old pages, because they were built, the build time of the web page was in 2024. So this was an easy fix, but yeah, I think there are not that many people using this search, because everyone knows it produces so bad results, but it's getting better. Or if we cannot find a web page, all web pages we have appear under Devil website stats, where we list some statistics. And so often this page was found and presented to the user. Download pages. I guess download page is important, because people want to download. It's still a little bit a mess, because we do not have one download page, but maybe like 5 to 6. Which concentrates on topic like CD installation, torrents, Jigdo, whatever. And for the torrent page, for the torrent download page, we said, oh, use this old software that was not updated anymore, or the links were broken, or our own torrents client were removed 2 releases ago. And we had a page where we said, ooh, who is selling CDs? And I really contacted them and asked, because I just clicked on the pages. So if you want to help the web team, just click on the link. And because then often with the CD vendors, I found a page, about a company selling CDs for Debian. So you don't get a 404, or that the link is not broken. No, the link is still there. It says you can buy Debian CDs from us up to version 9 or Debian 10. So I contacted 9 of them, and now 8 of them got removed. Our download page is still not called download, but distrib, because it tells us about how to download things, how to buy CDs or PCs that are pre-installed with computers. And also, I could remove some vendors, because the web pages showed anything but not that you can buy Debian computers there. We created some statistic. So on the web page with the statistics, we also showed how many accesses or hits we have to these pages. But we were parsing the log files, but we were also counting the non-existing pages, so it takes more time. And now we have only 26 million accesses or lines in the Apache logs in 2 weeks, and we only count the HTTP requests that were successful. Translation. We are very proud of our translation, but especially this /distrib page, which is our main download page, I changed a lot of things there, improved them, and I removed translation because they were too outdated. So for me, it's better to present an English page with the current content and not outdated pages. Outdated doesn't mean that a translation showed an outdated Debian version, but the text and the structure of the download page were completely different than it's nowadays. There were also some languages which had only a very few pages translated. I listed them there. And for me, or I think it's a general problem, it's very hard to see, is a translation language still active? Because it doesn't, so we have people or teams that are working on a certain language, but this doesn't mean that only those people are working on the pages. But if only a link changed, or there are also Git commits that they just switch from HTTP to HTTPS. So you really have to read all the Git logs to see when was the last translation done of the content of the web page, and not only some structure or the HTML validation said, oh, there's a missing closing /p or whatever. So it's very hard. Or sometimes only the PO files. It's a tool for helping the translators, and you need some updates in the PO files, and then only the PO files gets updated, but not the content. So I would say we should define a minimum requirement for a language. For example, the start page, the download page, and in the web tree, maybe the second level of all our web pages should be translated. Concerning statistics, yeah. So we have statistics here, for example, about the Turkish language. So a page showing which pages are translated to Turkish and not. And this page is also translated into Italian. So, and you can find all sorts of, or in the past you could find all sorts of translation, because it's just very simple text, and we can do this PO translation. But nowadays we only show the English version and the version of the language itself, and not all combinations. So this also removed a lot of files. With the PO files, there's something very nice. So in the PO file, the translators have strings, so they could just translate single strings or half a sentence, and they say for which language it is. But there are a lot of ISO codes for German as speaking in Germany, or as speaking in Austria, or German as speaking in, I think, in South America. There's a small community speaking German. And for example, we also have 9,000 files that we generate because in some PO file, someone used the ISO code for, I think it's, ancient English. So an English that was spoken from 450 up to 1100. After, not before Christus. Or you can find some statistic about Marovo language. They even did some translation, but there are not that many native speakers, which is fine. But I think it pollutes our statistics, because you see a very long list of, and you have to select it. I also added things to the web page. For example, LTS project, which is, we have a web page about long-term support. It was a very plain text page, and I thought, there are people saying LTS is not officially Debian, but sure, the users laugh that there's the LTS or ELTS project. So why shouldn't we promote it much better on our web page? I think that's very important. The more detailed information about LTS and ELTS is still in the wiki and not on the web page. But I just added the LTS logo because I think it looks a little more professional to have a logo. Yeah, there's LTS. And maybe we should also move some information to the main Debian web page. So that's some typical Debian project. Now it does not officially belong to us, so let's move it somewhere else and do not talk about it. Yeah, also nice, the security web form, so where it was no longer used, but it was still edited. And yeah, the statistics I already told. And translations, yeah, in the past from 2004 to 2008, I found some Git commands, Git commits. So during that time, there were people that were automatically purging. I'm not sure if via a script or how they did it. Outdated translations. So if a web page, if the translation was not in sync, and we can track this, if it's not in sync with the English original version, they just remove the page without asking or pinging the people. So either you keep up in sync with the original or this patch gets removed. I think 6 months is maybe not okay, but we should do something, remove early the things. And one nice, or no, not nice, we have a bug report open since more than 20 years saying the web pages do not have a free license. And there were, I think, every 5 to 7 years or something like this bug is still discussed, and how can we fix it? And years ago, people contacted all authors of old pages, and sure, not all replied. And currently, the release team will just say, we ignore. It's a, I think, release critical bug, and we just ignore it for the next release. But shouldn't we just close it? Any opinions here? Because I guess we would never fix this problem.
Let's just be bold and stick Creative Commons share alike on all pages. And anyone can object and say, I don't want my content license with that, but just pick a free license and stick it on, and then we're done.
Yeah. And then I think this also shows that there were some ideas how to do it, but we want to make it perfect, and nobody likes to do this decision now. We just do it. We change. I think currently we say the pages are under some SPI license, and we wanted to change it, but nobody says, yeah, just let's do it, and then see if someone complains. Instead, the bug is open and will be discussed in a few years, I'm pretty sure. So a more general question, and that's what I did not yet, but what I like to do in the future. What about news? We have certain news. We have project news, weekly news, we have press news. The Debian installer has some news, and we still have them from more than 20 years ago. So one question is, when do news become old? And I did a short discussion with some people last year in India, and yeah, maybe just shout some numbers of days, months, or whatever. What do you think?
Sorry, if they are well structured, why would you ever remove them?
Good question. So I would like to remove them.
I mean, for historians, it's always interesting which news were there. Especially for them, I would never remove them as long as they are, well, in a canonical place, more or less. Then they also don't disturb you.
I was thinking the same during the whole talk. I was thinking, as an historian, there is a lot of stuff that you maybe removed, that I'm not happy that you did it. For example, Debian Med is not active now, but if at some point I want to know what was Debian Med, what were they doing, it's interesting from a historical point of view. And also for the translations, maybe I'm wrong, but there are some people for whom old or not so used languages are important. And even if you have only 3 files, it's important. It's even politically important that small languages exist on the web, have an existence. So how do you deal with this? And if it's too much of a problem for statistics, maybe the problem is the statistics, not the languages or the translations. It's really questions, because I don't know your context. What statistics were you doing, and how did they pollute them?
It's more like finding the important information in a huge amount of obsolete old information. And
but you don't know what is important for everybody, because from a historical point of view...
Yeah, but then I would say a question or a discussion would be, what is the main target audience for our web pages? The historical or the technical people? The people that want to install a new Debian version. So it's really a question, who reads or who should be our users of the web page? So there are several. Rudi?
For the historians, the Git that you have this in, that's public.
Yeah, sure.
And you're not rewriting history.
No.
So you can always look in the Git if you are a historian interested in past news for research and history reasons.
So we have all the data. It may be not that easy accessible for you, but there's also archive.org, which archive.org, Debian is in there.
Yeah, so one more point. I think having too much information is usually a problem because the consumer of that information isn't able to access that in an efficient way. And I can see that many of the cleanups that you've done and many of the optimizations that you've done deal with having to deal with static web pages, right, that are, well, reside as files on a web server somewhere. So would it help to have some kind of more dynamic access system, like a content management system that would allow people to sort, select, filter informations like news or other things in a way that takes away this maintenance effort from you as the web page maintainer, and makes things a bit more self-organizing in a way? Are there any efforts to move to a different system?
Yeah, sure. And for example, we have some dynamic content or generate content, and it will be a huge amount of work to transfer this to a new system. That's also why I want to clean up, and I don't want to invest time into old things that we can present in a new content management system, because I think, just concentrate on the most important things. And sure, we will leave some content, there's archive, there's other things, but the people, I think it's not only about the web pages, but someone asked me, then there was this move from backports to the archive. As a user, I didn't get the information because this is on another mailing list than our announced mailing list, or maybe it's only in the wiki. So I think Debian produces too much information. It's spread all over. And for the users, especially for the end users, it's hard to find the information they are looking for. And for me, it's the same with the news. For example, I won't remove the voting information. I think voting information is also, for me, important historical content, but not that someone announces there's a new package or there was a change in the Debian installer 2002. It doesn't care from my point of view. So I would maybe keep them for 1 or 2 years and not longer. I will not show screenshots. You can go to the Debian deb page and search for things, and if you find bad search results, you can just email me or file a bug report. This may be open for several years. So, for example, that we have the release notes and the installation guides for every architecture and language. This pollutes the search engine a lot. And yeah, someone said, don't remove the pages, but improve the search engine. But yes, this may not happen because it's a lot of effort to implement or introduce a new search engine. So sure, we want to get rid of this WML generator things, and I think the next thing that I like to do is cleaning up the download pages, because we have like 5 to 7 download pages. And I would say maybe we need one download page for the end user, maybe for the developers. So hints for the translators. So we have a lot of active translators, and that's very nice. But do not only translate the English version. Yesterday I found a bug that I've changed something on a web page, and the translator were just translating the content and didn't check that there were 2 links that were broken. And I would like to get help or review. Please, does the sentences that are written there make sense to other people? So please help, not only translating but reviewing. And cleaning takes a lot of time, and I'm not that brave enough that I say just remove everything, take a new content management system and try from scratch with new content. Yeah, I like to move content to a new system, but before I have to clean up. And discuss shortly and decide early. We know everything, how is the saying? Release early, release often. So discuss not often, but decide shortly, in a short time. Thank you very much. Questions?
Thank you, Thomas, for this update. There will be a short amount of time for questions, and there's one.
Maybe one more comment about the situation regarding the removal of stuff, and your motivation for that was that you get bad search results, it's a maintenance problem, and so on and so forth. I just wanted to point out for everybody who doesn't like it, they can always step up and help you, right? Like in every project, if you don't like that something being done, just spend your own time on making things better. And then if you care, maybe news can be kept for longer or in a different way or put in a different place so they don't like disturb search results or whatnot.
So I would be very happy if someone likes to set up a historical web pages Debian.net. Go ahead, do it. Yeah. Yeah. Please come back later.
May I suggest that we do not delete the historical content from the Git repository history and point historians at the Git history?
We could do this because there will be other people that cloned the Git repository and will archive it somewhere. So even if there would be a technical need to remove or rewrite the Git history, I think we will make a backup. Okay, and over there. Where was the second microphone?
I can only just agree. In Debian, we have a big problem, which is some kind of maintainer starvation, whereby maintainer is not meant for package maintainers, but for service maintainers. We have so many obscure features. Somebody sometimes implemented, set a patch, and somebody applied it, and then nothing ever happens. And I would say for myself, I look into a lot of dark corners in Debian, and I always find such things. There's things that haven't been touched since 2003, or even end of the 90s. And nobody cares about them. But they are a maintenance burden. They break, and then somebody thinks, oh, it's now broken. Somebody needs it. I will fix it. And still nobody needs it. And that's the problem.
And I would also say from the user point of view, I would say if we would be a company, people would say, oh, I don't buy anything from Debian because I'm not sure, is this updated content or outdated, or, oh, I clicked on 3 services that Debian says they provide this or that service, but the web page was down or whatever. So it's a very bad reputation if a lot of things are outdated or does not work, as we promote, hey, we have this nice service.
I would really prefer if we would provide less but better maintained services than before. We don't need every statistic. I know even in lists we have statistics that are that obscure and are still running somewhere, eating CPU time.
Less is more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remove more and don't implement everything that comes by.
Yeah. Concentrate on the most important things for the users and not for us. Thank you very much.